Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to the era of augmented intelligence, Einstein Discovery. My name is Arijit Sengupta. I'm a recovering nerd. When I say recovering nerd, I studied computer science, economics, and dance at Stanford. Don't ask me to dance today. You can just do some Google searches and find some embarrassing videos for yourself. This is being recorded, so I can't really dance for you. Went off to look at the world of artificial intelligence, worked with people like Clay Christensen, the guy who came up with the idea of disruption. And one of the fundamental things I focused on was, how do we truly bring the world of artificial intelligence to empower every business user? Because that's actually kind of a tough thing to do. It's very easy to put a pretty UI on top of things, but how do you make it real? Because we're part of Salesforce, I have to show you public company, make your purchase decisions based on what's in the product today. And first, thank you. It's really important. What you're going to see today has been built by you with the help of the feedback we have received from customers, with the advice we have received, and fundamentally, most of what's in the product today is based on the customers we have had over the years. Quick show of hands, would you mind if you have actually used Einstein Discovery before, would you mind standing up for a second? Is that possible? Would you guys really mind doing that? Okay, let's do one thing. Can we get some citizen data scientist jackets for each of you? If you stay on for just 1 second, because it's really important for us to thank you guys, because you have made this possible. Guys, can we give a quick show of, thank you so much. Just know that these are people who are right now in the forefront of what augmented intelligence is. And why is this important? The reason this is important is the way we do analytics today is we start out by asking some very specific questions about our business. Let's imagine we are one of the hotels that you're staying at, and we're trying to figure out what drives revenue. What do we really do? We go start asking, hey, does the day of the week matter? Does the state the person from, does it matter? Which company are they from? Which industry? What about how many kids they have? What else matters? And you can imagine, you get tired after asking 10, 20, 30 questions, right? That's the fundamental problem. And what we really wanted to ask was actually something very different. What we really wanted to ask is a question of, how can I increase revenue? Most of our business questions that we actually want to answer are actually very simple. They're all about, how do we impact the lives of our customers? How do we improve their lives? How do we generate more revenue? How do we reduce costs? How do we improve CSAT? These are fundamental, simple questions. But the questions we have to ask behind those questions are not simple. They're really, really hard. How do we do that? That is the fundamental journey we are on. Now, I could claim that we can just do it automatically by using machines. Let's look at the problem we are trying to solve. Fundamentally, the problem is there are many, many questions to ask in our data. We talked about that. I'll give you an example of this, by the way. A few years back, we did a project, which is actually one of my favorite projects, where we looked at 30 million patients across 1 million variable combinations, trying to figure out what drives readmission. And a very interesting pattern came up. Young women with diabetes had a 49% rehospitalization rate. Now, that's a shockingly high number. You'd think everybody would have known about it. It turned out nobody actually knew about it. Why? Once we investigated it further, it turned out that young women were not taking insulin as a dieting strategy. Basically, if you don't take insulin, your body doesn't process sugar, so you lose weight. It was a dieting strategy. Now, why did nobody notice this? Because the PhD students who were actually doing the research, they knew how diabetes works, right? They knew it couldn't possibly be something that we should focus on for young people. We should be looking for older people. By the way, men are worse at taking their meds than women, so you should really start with old men. Why would you look at young women? Does this make sense? Fundamentally, the questions we ask determines the quality of the analysis. And this brings us to the point of the human bias. What happened there? It wasn't that they wanted to be biased. They were using a very sane principle. If I'm trying to do research on readmission, start with the people most likely to be readmitted, right? That sounds reasonable. But they fell into the machine learning, they fell into the human bias trap. That problem can actually be solved through machine learning. I can actually throw AI at it, an AI without any human bias is going to go look at many, many, many possibilities, ask all the questions, and present it to us. Here's the funny thing. Remember I was telling you this really cool story about the young woman with diabetes? Can anybody guess, if we throw a machine readmission data on 30 million patients, what's the most interesting pattern a machine might find? Anybody wants to guess? Only women get pregnant. Look at it from a machine's perspective. It's actually a really interesting pattern. It's a disease that only affects a small percentage of the population. It's always women. It's always in an age group. The readmission is never sooner than 9 months, right? And it happens 2, 3, 4 times. It doesn't happen that often, right? To a machine, that pattern is extremely interesting. How do we make sure what our machine has learned? Because flip that equation over. If we don't understand what our machine has learned, can we really take business decisions based on it? How many people here use Google? Okay, how many of you have actually used I'm feeling lucky? You guys are crazy. There's actually half of the people who have their hands up. Typically, very few people actually go in and click the I'm feeling lucky, because despite the fact we know it's going to be pretty good, we still want to see what the machine has learned, what are the different parameters of it. Is that fair? Because what we are saying is I want to understand what this thing is doing. That is important. When we don't have a sense of control over what we are learning, we actually don't act upon it. And finally, this part about actionable. Predictions are nice. But what are predictions? Predictions are telling you, dude, you're going to miss your number this quarter. Is that useful? Maybe, probably not. What you really want to know is, here are the 10 things you should do to have a profitable quarter, right? Fundamentally different question. One's a prediction, the other is an actionable recommendation. And the recommendations need to be given with certain amount of explanation so that, again, the human can overlay their human intuition and domain knowledge. So the human knows this pattern is something we should act upon. And that is what augmented intelligence is all about. How do we bridge that entire comprehension gap that actually prevents people from adopting AI? Think about this from this perspective. Fundamentally, every revolution that has ever happened, if you think of the internet revolution, if you think of the PC revolution, it has always happened when we have empowered vast sections of society. I still remember the first time I saw the Netscape browser. It was actually the first day I was at Stanford. I flew in from India. Never been outside of my country. I hadn't slept for 18 hours. I was hungry. I was a little scared, I must admit. Didn't know anybody in the US. Go into the lab, and I use Netscape browser for the first time. And I'm getting goosebumps thinking of that moment because it was just so magical. I stayed up for the next 8 hours making my first website of my life, right? Because it was so fundamental. I had used the internet before, using text interfaces. And the internet had existed for decades before this moment when I used Netscape for the first time. But that moment of empowerment, when I felt like I could do this, that was magical. And what I would strive to, think of how do you see the difference between augmented intelligence and artificial intelligence? When I talk to my customers, the ones who help me build the stuff that we are going to see, our customers always say, I did this. I created a model that affected my user behavior. I created something that is affecting 1,000 users. They don't say, the machine told me this. You will find that cognitive dissonance is a very important one. When you talk about AI, we tend to say the machine told me to do this. Why are we saying that? For 2 reasons, by the way. One is we're immediately putting an emotional distance between us and the machine, saying, I didn't mess up, the machine told me to do so. Right? That's actually a bad sign. Second is you're seeing the difference between, do people feel empowered? Do people feel like they now have magic powers? Can they now do more than they could do before? That's the difference. So rather than talking to you about it, I actually want to bring up Bill Hoffman and Michael Corey from US Bank, because they're doing this for real. And I always find it much more useful to talk to people who are doing this stuff for real than talk about theoretical stuff. Bill, Michael, if you could please come up.
Hey, partner.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Bill, like, fundamental thing, you're a trailblazer. Tell me a little bit about what you're thinking about in this world of augmented intelligence, how you're approaching it. Why is augmented intelligence important to you at US Bank?
Well, first off, I want to say you may be a recovering nerd. I'm still a nerd. So I lead CRM and analytics for US Bank. And one thing about Arjit that you may not know, he's actually speaking to you in his 7th language right now, which I just think is astounding. I mean, that's an amazing fact. And really appreciate the partnership. So I think for me, what you just said is the key. You said augmented, not artificial. And for us, that's a big delineation when we think about rolling out machine learning. We're very focused on making sure that the machine learning, so deep learning, deep knowing, deep thinking, whatever you want to call it, right? Like that it's enabling a better decision for a human being in service of human beings being more human, right? So if you're, as an example, a financial advisor in wealth, and you can leverage the machine to help you understand who the right person to call is, when to call them, what even to talk about. If you're taking a bit of that minutia out of the day-to-day for a financial advisor, they have more time to build a relationship with a client in a deeper way or build a new relationship. So to me, I see AI and ML really as empowering human beings versus some of the craziness out there about Skynet, rise of the machines, AI is taking over the world. Like, no, like it depends. Like, maybe, but like to me, it's about empowering our frontline employees in a way that's going to create a better relationship with our customers.
Right. And actually, I didn't give you a chance to tell us a little bit about US Bank. Maybe if we have a slide up,
yeah,
we could tell a little bit about US Bank.
So we're the 5th largest bank in the US. We are in 25 states. We have 73,000 employees, a wide variety of businesses. And I've really been on a journey over the last few years to create a truly customer-centered company, right? Really putting the customer at the center of everything we do and being more central to those customers. So you don't just walk into the mortgage part of US Bank or the credit card part of US Bank or a branch or you're a small business customer, you're a US Bank customer. And we need to make sure we have that unified customer experience for you. Fundamentally because we're not just competing against the top 4 banks, we're competing against your best customer experience at the best company that serves you well, Disney, Apple, Amazon, right? So that's the bar. So we're thinking about how do we build better relationships with our customers in a unified way, truly putting the customer at the center, and really excited about the partnership with Salesforce to help us get there.
Thank you. And Michael, basically, first tell us a little bit about what you do, and what was analytics like before you started using Einstein?
Yeah, first, Orjit, thanks for the invite, thanks for the partnership, and big thanks to Alec, Tom, Darvish, the data scientist team from Salesforce, Randy Sherwood there, and Kevin Dietz. Orjit, we've always done a very good job on descriptive and diagnostic analytics, what's happening and why. But when you ask financial advisors, what's the most valuable data to you, they tell you, we want to see the list of clients who are going to have a liquidity event. We want to know who's selling their business, right? Show me the list of clients who have the highest propensity to become wealth management clients. So they're asking us to help them with predictive analytics. Before Einstein Discovery, we had to build a model to answer those questions. And that was a time-consuming process. It took 6 to 9 months to build a model because the analysts had to gather the requirements, gather the data, analyze the data, build the model, select the right model, model validation. I'm going to stop here. And then you have a whole process to integrate on the CRM system. So we stopped building models, especially when you give the result to the financial advisors and you give them a score. And their first question is, why does this client have a score of 75 and this other client has a score of 18? And the best answer was, that's what the model is telling us. And we had hundreds of financial advisors. So that's why we stopped building models.
Yeah.
With Einstein Discovery, you can bring all your data, run multiple stories, pick the right insights, and roll it out to the advisors because it's within Salesforce, and you can do all of this in few days. Maybe I'm a bit aggressive, maybe a couple of weeks. And most importantly, you show the advisor a score, and you tell them exactly, right, what the top predictive factors are. And we even get into the prescriptive analytics, tell them here are the things you need to do to grow the relationship or to retain the assets at US Bank.
Right. So with your permission, can I show the audience a little bit of what you guys have done? Because it might seem a little esoteric and making it real might help. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Darvish, would you mind showing a little bit of what we did at US Bank? And we're going to give you a quick sense of what does the end result look like? And then we are going to try to bake that cake, and we're going to do something a little crazy, because we're going to create an AI model on stage, and you get to make fun of me because I'll try to do it. And if I mess up, I have some backup plans here who can come in and help me. So it'll be a lot of fun if I can't make the model myself. Go ahead, Darvish.
All right, thanks. Hey guys, so I get the privilege of just showing you a couple examples of some of the work that we've been collaborating with US Bank on, and definitely appreciate the partnership and some of the work we've been doing together. So I have about 3 minutes to show you this, so it's just definitely going to be a snippet, but I'm working in the Einstein area in Moscone West. If anyone wants to come talk to me tomorrow, I'll be there all day. So what this essentially is a couple examples. Obviously, it's fictitious data, but they are, you know, sort of real world use cases that hopefully you guys can relate to, that we've been working with US Bank on. And so at its essence, what Einstein Discovery is really doing is kind of the theme is augmented intelligence, right? And so the example here would be, if I'm an advisor and I have a lot of stuff to take care of, a lot of clients, a lot of prospects, et cetera, when I land on my homepage like you're seeing here in Salesforce, first of all, I want sort of an aggregation of all the data that I care about in one place. But you know, for the purposes of what we're talking about in this session, I really want to just be able to click into a simple Salesforce view, which I have here, that on the face of it looks like a standard Salesforce view, except what you're really seeing here is Einstein Discovery has gone through mounds of data, both Salesforce and non-Salesforce data, and it said, for me as an FA, as a financial advisor, which specific customers or prospects do I need to call today? Which of them need some interaction from me right away? You can see that we have 3 here. We have Alicia, we have Bob, and we have Rachel. They all need attention for different reasons, right? But the machine learning, the AI in the background has told us these are the most important people that you could call today. So to a US Bank financial advisor, this would be hugely helpful, right? I mean, it's just that prioritization. And so the first one, let's actually just start with Alicia, since she's got a big red dot by her. Why is she showing up as red? Well, you'll notice over here, this is sort of a standard Salesforce screen with Financial Services Cloud and standard account details. But on the right-hand side of the screen, we see the Einstein Discovery panel telling us she has a very high attrition risk. On a scale from 0 to 100, she's a 94.2, right? So she's likely to leave her relationship, and we want to help prevent that. And so what you see here are leading causes on why she's likely to leave, and that includes maybe moving money to some places that are not good. Other examples is maybe what state she lives in. So there's all kinds of reasons why this might be. But the machine learning and the AI is telling us what those are. So I know right away what the reasons are, but also most importantly, like Roy just said, at the bottom part of the screen, specific recommendations using prescriptive analytics on how can I improve the relationship with her. So actionable things that the advisor can do immediately. So that's one example, that's attrition. Another one is, let me flip to Rachel here. So Rachel's another existing client, and the question that we've asked of Einstein Discovery here is, which of our existing clients are most likely to bring in X thousands of dollars of new money into the relationship with us in the next 6 months, say, for example? Well, she rose to the top of the list for this particular FA with a score of 82.4. And again, we get a list of specific reasons why, because she lives in a certain area, because she has other products, or maybe she's been referred, or whatever those reasons are. Those are going to be right there front and center for me to take action on. And then how to improve this, again, we can do things like offer her a discount, or maybe put her on a marketing journey, or offer her a credit card. And there's lots of things that we could do, but I don't have to think about that. The data is going to tell me what the best next things are to do with Rachel in this example. So those are just a couple of quick examples. We have more. I'm happy to talk to you guys about it. And again, we really appreciate the partnership, and thank you for giving me a chance to show that. And I'll turn it back over to Orjit.
So basically, we have a data set here where we have like a date, a wealth indicator. Wealth indicator would be, do you think this person is going to become a wealth management customer? Household size, referral count. All I'm doing is I'm going in and saying, I want to maximize. It didn't figure out that it should really be wealth indicator is true. And I'm just telling it to go in and tell me, what should I do to maximize that? And you see flashing by there, it says 1587, and then drop down to 1197 graphs. Think of it as the questions I can ask of this data. how many combinations. I'm looking at the state, I'm looking at the industry, I'm looking at how many years they've been a customer. All of those combinations got quickly asked. It's doing some statistical tests. It's confirming that the patterns are real, because two things might be correlated, but there is a third factor affecting it. Now, by the way, why am I showing you the progress bar? It's not just because the progress bar is cute. It's because we're actually doing this real. And that's the scary part of this, that we are taking a raw data set and we're actually analyzing it, and hopefully in a few seconds, we're going to have a story for you on stage right now. And it's moved on to the story. Just to give you a sense of what it has done, I'm just going to let it tell me what it has found, because we're literally letting the data speak. What it's going to start with is what happened and why, because it's important for us to understand
In the average state, the expected percent true wealth indicator of a transaction is 31.31. It increases by 11.23 in the case where state is California. This is because of the following key factors. It increases when state is California. Percent true wealth indicator is increased when newest account type is investment.
Now, one of the interesting things here is it's figured out what's going on with California. One of the things it's pointing out is tech professionals. That's actually really interesting. Now, imagine me as a human expert. I might know something that this pattern about the account type investment is not real, because maybe that is something we mainly sell in California. So the fact that it's showing up in California is not interesting. I don't want the machine to learn this. But this thing about tech professionals, the fact that it desegregated the effect of California from the effect of tech professionals, I really like this. I want the machine to know about this. And now I hit resume, and I continue. What you just saw there is a machine went in and found out what's important, explained it to me as a human, and I provided it feedback right there. That's human augmentation. That's empowerment. Does that make sense for people? I'm going to skip past most of this. Any data scientists in the room, it actually walks you through what changed this month. It walks you through what can you do about it. You should come to the booths and see that. Any data scientists in the room? Okay, there's Randy. Randy doesn't count. I see a couple of other people. For you guys, we have the entire model out in R, because you should be able to check the model. We shouldn't hide anything. And by the way, the validation scores are right there. But for the rest of us, I can click a button and get a PowerPoint deck out. And what's going to happen here is, if you notice, the speaker notes have been created for me. And this PowerPoint deck is literally walking me through what's important in my data. What has the machine learned? Because the entire idea here is, how do I provide that feedback to the human so that the human can provide feedback back? Does that resonate with people? Okay. So let's move on. And so these were some of the examples you saw. So Michael, how much did we BS this? Like, was this Dreamforce magic, or was that somewhat real to what you saw?
No, these were the use cases we covered, and they helped us uncover a lot of predictive drivers that make a lot of sense. Money movement, relationship with other financial institutions, how our clients use their existing products and solutions at the bank. And when you bring them all together, you see the full picture, and it makes a lot of sense.
So, but why did you trust it? These crazy bunch of people, and Randy looks a little crazy, as you know. He shows up, he runs this stuff, he shows you something. Hopefully the camera was getting pointed to Randy. Why did you trust it? It seems crazy that you would trust it.
Yeah, besides that, Randy is the smartest data scientist I've met. We trusted the Einstein Discovery because it's not a black box. It presents to you the insight about your business. It tells you what happened, why, what will happen, what can you do about it. So for example, on day one, we found that young, affluent customers have the highest propensity to become wealth management clients, right? That's a question we never asked before. And the best part is, again, it's not a black box. We can hone in on the details, and we found that, you know what, it makes a lot of sense. US Bank is their primary relationship. We have the best advisors and bankers at all US Bank branches. And while we tend to focus on wealthier customers, most likely they have established a financial relationship with another financial institution, right? And you know, this is what we started seeing from day one. So that's why we trusted this software.
And Bill, why does this matter to you? Like, you have talked about augmented intelligence empowerment in wonderful ways. Like, how does this map to what you're trying to achieve?
So we're very focused on democratizing analytics, and I think that's one of the reasons why US Bank and Salesforce work really well together, because we have very similar cultures and points of view. So for us, it's important for the analytics team to enable, what do we do, right? We're analytics professionals. We enable good decisions. That's what we get up every day trying to do. And historically, analytics teams have been very focused on doing that for the CEO, the C-suite, key decision makers at whatever organization you're at, maybe their direct reports and maybe their direct reports. But to be able to do that and enable the front line to make sure that we're democratizing these types of insights into the hands of our financial advisors, that allows us to get personalization at scale. That's really the only way to make sure you have a unique, differentiated customer experience that can compete with some of the best customer experiences out there, right? They're doing personalization at scale. So we're very focused on taking these insights and making sure we're enabling our frontline employees to have a deeper relationship with their customers and to leverage insights. And one other point about this, why we found it valuable and truthful, obviously it's based on empirical data, and we like that it's also there's a recency factor, right? That we're looking at this every 15 minutes. So it's real-time, empirical, not just descriptive data, back to your point earlier, Michael, but interaction data, right? These are our customers interacting with us, in near real time, and we're able to start to see those patterns that may not have been as obvious from traditional analytical methods.
Right. And Michael, we all know that analysis is only as good as the data. So how much effort was it in getting the data together? What did you have to do? How hard was that?
Orjit, I think the biggest mistake all of us make is we spend so much time on data, right? We try to collect as much data as possible before we start the analysis. But with Einstein Discovery, right, we don't see any downside if you start with the data you have, because you can bring the data in a few minutes, run multiple stories in a few minutes, and the software is going to tell you you have predictive variables, or it might tell you, I see something happening here, and you need more data, something is missing. And you can go back to the drawing board and bring more data into the software and create stories again in a few minutes. So I see a big downside if we spend a lot of time on data, because by the time we finish gathering the data, so much has happened in the business that now you have to go back and update the data and fight, you will see, you will run into system issues, data discrepancies, right? So there's no need to wait to start the analysis.
Yeah. Actually, if I may tell a story from a different customer for a second, I just found it funny because you guys were talking yesterday. These guys always joke that whenever they start a project, they say, oh, I'm going to go run 50 stories with Einstein Discovery and come back. And we were all chatting yesterday, and somebody reacted and said, 50 stories, oh my God, that's bad. And we started laughing because we're like, no, you can run 50 stories because you can iterate really quickly. You're not going to get it right the first time. And if the cost of analysis, if the cost of curiosity is really high, people don't get curious. When the cost of curiosity is low, when I can just say, I'm just going to dump it in there and see what I find. And I'm going to iterate a few times, and each iteration is going to take me a few minutes. I'm going to get there. Now you're building action-oriented, how do we empower people to try things, right, rather grassroots, right? But you were talking about the bank, and you have a really complex environment, right? From a regulatory perspective, from just the complexity of the organization. How does that feed into your thinking about augmented intelligence?
It's a great question. So, we're looking at this. Part of it is, what problem are you solving for? And I mentioned this morning. We did not look at this as a technology problem per se. It's really a change management problem. How do you get someone to want to use Einstein in the field? Right?
Exactly.
That's what you're solving for. So, analytics professionals, we often try to get the right answers, but perhaps we have the questions wrong, right? So starting with that as the frame. And really, we think there are 5 things that we've learned in our experience so far with AI and ML that are really relevant and would be good things to think about as you kind of roll out your journey at your institution or nonprofit or a company, right? So the first is, and Michael, you spoke to it just now, take a very methodical test and learn approach. Be flexible, be agile, move with speed. Don't feel like you have to have all the data at your company and ingest that into Einstein to start. You don't have to do that. In fact, the case you just went through had 9 fields, not 2,000, right? So second, related to that is think about fast, small data versus clunky big data. And to Michael's point as well, iterate on what you have. Like, we learned a lot from just the easy stuff that was already we already had native to our Salesforce platform, and then have been bringing in other things. But why not start there? Like, we see results, we see impact, and those create the proof points you need. The third, and really, arguably the most important part of this, is relentlessly focus on end user engagement. So what is that financial advisor trying to do? What is he or she thinking about? What are the needs they have? What are the unmet needs they have? How can we learn from that experience? And then one of the things Michael mentioned as well, the leading causes. So giving that proof point was a very key insight for us. In the past we were just like, hey, you should just trust the model. It's a 92. It's better than 70. Great, right? But for folks to see why and to be able to connect with that with some context, extremely important. Right. Fourth, to your point, Arjit, on the complexity of our organization, we needed to make sure that we were doing this in a way that our CEO talks about as kind of straight down the middle of the fairway, right? Like, fair data is an incredibly important part. I mean, we're basically a trust-based business, right? So we need to make sure that we're shepherding our customer data in a very thoughtful and careful way, and that we're doing so with all of our regulatory compliance risk partners in mind. So we brought all of our key partners into the mix to start this work, and would recommend that. It doesn't have to be, you get one for one meeting, a couple additional, don't feel like you have to get everything perfect to start, but be thinking about your key stakeholders and bring them in as soon as you possibly can. And I think another part for us really has been the fifth key success factor is celebrate your successes. It's okay to talk about a couple of incremental wins to build momentum and be relentlessly focused on, we've been doing that, a little bit of a roadshow internally, right? Out with our wealth management folks, many of whom are in the room, talking about the benefits so that you drum up excitement and support. This is a bright future. AI and ML enables a lot of great decision making, and when people at your company see just the benefits, the results, and your passion for AI and ML, they're going to start to buy in. So be thoughtful about marketing your capabilities internally or with your key constituents.
Yeah, I love the last point you said. If I may expand on it, one of the best practices and seeing some of the top customers is, sounds weird, but it's almost like how do you infect people with that excitement, right? And doing something as simple as a senior exec saying, every month I'm going to have a brown bag session where people come in and show me what you have found. Show me some examples. And I'm going to give people some very basic prizes. It can be something as silly as like give them a dinner voucher, whatever it is, right? But just that chance to come in and show, I have found this using AI and ML. I have been empowered to do more, right? I can guarantee you one thing, none of us, despite all of our expertise, know what the world will be like once AI and ML is properly adopted. Right. Just like at the beginning of the internet revolution, nobody could have predicted what the world would be like at the end of the internet revolution.
Right.
You want to get this in the hands of as many people, with them playing with it, making it their own. That's how it's gonna succeed.
Yeah, I mean, we've been basically taking a page from your playbook, right? Like, you're having us up here talking about our case. We want to do the same as the analytics team with our business partners. Like, we're enablers. We're not the business, but we want to make sure the business is successful. And really, that's the spirit of this, is how do you have that enablement and, you're augmenting the work versus some sort of artificial, non-human, non-direct relationship. It's about enablement and partnership.
Right. And I love the way both of you talk about your colleagues and people you're working with. Could you give me a couple of stories of people whose lives have changed or the way they do their work has changed because of this approach towards augmented intelligence?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, I've had experience in military, government service, thinking about the importance of both of those, and those mean a lot to me. So for me, it's always been important to work for a place where you're serving something bigger than yourself. And banking is an important industry. Like, you're helping people decide, should they open a business, or what's the best route to do that? Are you saving enough for your kids? Do you have enough for retirement? Those are huge decisions. So we're really earlier in that journey, but we do see a way for the leveraging of AI and ML not only to serve our frontline employees, but ultimately our end customers. So for example, hey, maybe some of you are thinking about, in the Bay Area, thinking about a new mortgage. Wouldn't it be cool if, we knew what the top 10 questions were of all US Bank customers looking for a mortgage in San Francisco, and we thought we would just answer those questions for you?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the power here, where you start to really build your customers' capabilities, not just your own, and then that's using AI and ML as a force for good.
Michael?
So Orjit, Einstein is helping us connect with our advisors and bankers. We already rolled it out to advisors, to bankers. They're using it. We're getting feedback. And we're getting a lot of interesting questions. This week, an advisor emailed us. He's saying he received a couple referrals from a branch manager, and it's for the same person. So there are 2 referral records. If he dispositions one of them as closed loss, is this going to impact the Einstein predictive modeling, right? I mean, this is great. This is the type of engagement and conversation we need to have with our advisors and bankers.
Right. No, this is fascinating. So what's next in your Einstein Discovery journey, in your Einstein journey?
So we want to take, we've had the case with wealth, we want to expand our cases here. We're also looking at other parts of the business where you have a more higher complexity, lower transaction volume. So thinking about the work we're doing with commercial wholesale banking, small business mortgage. So part of it is the kind of expansion of this core capability across US Bank. Second is thinking about more of the customer-facing applications. And one thing that I'm really passionate about that we've talked about as well for 2018 is there are really, anyone in banking knows that there are some very clear fair credit standards. Mm-hmm. Really across banking, or maybe, I'm not sure if there's cases in other industries, but we need to come up with the rules of the road around fair data use, mm-hmm. right? So can we work with our regulatory partners to help set a bit of the agenda around AI and ML? That's something that we're passionate about. We've got a good reputation with our regulatory partners. We followed the rules of the road. We didn't fall victim to some of the practices around 2008 with that got us into some trouble. And I think we've got a good reputation that we can leverage in service of helping define what AI and ML needs to look like for financial services, and that we're doing the right thing for consumers.
And what you said, the regulatory environment is kind of changing with GDPR and stuff like that, where one possible interpretation is you need to be able to tell people why they were rejected, if they were rejected because of an automated system. So that explanation becomes very key there.
Yeah, I mean, there's an uncertain future around this, but the best way to predict the future is to create it, right? So that's something we're passionate about.
On that point, we are down to the last 2 minutes, so I got to do the obligatory, by the way, quick closeout, and thank you so much. When you think about augmented intelligence, right, think about trust, because as you were saying, if the end users don't trust that recommendation, they're just not going to act upon it. So if you don't think about trust, you're not going to be able to succeed. Think about how you're sucking in that domain expertise, because that business user who's been in the bank for 20 years knows things that a machine cannot know, because it only knows what's in the data. How do we bring in that domain expertise? How do we empower these people? How do we scale? When we talk about scalability, we are not talking about scalability of a server. We are talking about scalability of organizations. How do you actually go get many, many, many people in the organization to feel empowered that they can try different things because of augmented intelligence? And finally, that feedback cycle, that continuous learning, not just in the process I showed where I provided feedback, but when we make a recommendation, did the financial advisor take the recommendation? When they didn't take the recommendation, can we learn from that? And by the way, remember I said it should be empowerment. Well, it's as easy as this. Just go to Trailhead, try it for yourself. Thousands of people have tried it already. So you're going to be in good company. And if anybody wants to go take that trail, anybody wants to try becoming a citizen data scientist, come on, you can stand up. If you stand up, we'll give you one of those citizen data scientist lab coats. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your coming. If you come to the corner, we'll get you the citizen data scientist lab coat. Thank you.